there she was, my grandmother, Lenore. She had been summoned because the birth difficulty with my dad's prize haven couldn't be resolved. The last hope. The last hope. If anybody could do it, then Nora would. Madam Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, I'm going to share with you a couple of stories that followed that event. Lenora pulled, she tugged, she prodded. The heifer couldn't deliver the prize cow. She worked on the calf. Sweating, tired, exhausted. She pronounced, I cannot deliver this cow. I cannot deliver this cow. A 9-year-old was dejected. Is there something that could have been done? Tears came down my eyes. About 30 years later, I had finished vet school. Did my doctoral research, fully grown man, ready for life. I left my office at around noon because my wife was in labor, ready to give birth. We don't know whether it was, we didn't know whether it was a boy or a girl at that time. Drove to Poudre Valley Hospital, called nurse practitioner, the midwife. She was there for us. That day, the hospital was full. We had to be in the waiting room. Strapped Megan, measured the contractions, IV lines, heart rate check, everything, clock on the bed. Oh, by the way, there's a sauna next door in case you want to. We can unhook you and get you off. After about 30 minutes, I told the nurses, could you take all these things off? Because from my training, I knew that that would interfere with labor. Reluctantly, they agreed. We went in the sauna, came back. 2 hours later, nurse practitioner checked. She's not dilating. I need to call the OBGYN. OBGYN came, checked. We have to give her oxytocin. No, you're not. After some discussion, they say, you need to give her prostaglandin. You too. Check. Oh yes, we could give her IV. Oh no, too many complications. You need to apply it locally. You need to put a gel there. No, we don't have. How about a pessary? Oh yes, pessary. It's just a big tablet. Put it in there. 4 hours later, dilated, uterus contracting, a little bit of oxytocin. You saved a life. Prevented an unnecessary surgical procedure on my wife. 5 years later, my daughter was playing at Barbara's house by the pool. Plop! She hit her lip on the concrete. I drove to Mount Sinai Hospital in Baltimore, Maryland. My wife doesn't like the sight of blood because she's very conscious about her baby. Mom, either you drive the car, which you are not going to be able to, or keep an eye on the baby. We go to the ER. Sunday afternoon, we were admitted. The resident comes, checks Katie, does all the things she needs to do, doesn't even bother to tell us what she's going to do. I knew what she was going to do. Comes with a big syringe. Wait! Talk to my daughter. Katie? How are you feeling? I got an Owiny! Okay, the doctor's going to make you well. I want you to just look at me. I'm going to help you. I'm going to work with you through this. But first, she's going to put something that'll make you a little numb. It might sting. And then you'll feel a little pressure. Can you do that for me? While you're doing that, think about the time we were at the beach. Close your eyes and think about it and open your mouth. Told the resident to take out the needle from the syringe, put a few drops of local anesthetic, everything will be fine. If at that point she wants to use a needle, she can. We did that. Katie, wound was closed and she was fine. We were discharged. Saved another life from trauma. Ladies and gentlemen, I've shared with you an experience I had in childhood that led me to choose a career in veterinary medicine to save animal lives, pursue additional training. Along the way, I learned how to help humans. You too can help humans. Next time somebody's lost, give them directions. They're hungry, support the livestock on the food bank. In any way, we had our Sarah work with our son. You too can save lives. Thank you, Madam.
Let's take a moment and fill out our evaluation forms for James' speech. All right, let's wrap up our comments. We're doing it. Let's welcome Linda up to lead in the evaluation session.
Fellow Toastmasters, and especially James, there are 2 or 3 things that I really loved about your speech and the stories you told. And probably far and most were the gestures. The way you impersonated your grandmother, she came alive for me. I could see your grandmother. The way you demonstrated the checking of the cervix during the birth process, I think was really created a visual picture of what was going on there. So I think your gestures really supported the material you were sharing with us. So I really like that. I think that the connection between what happened when you were 8 or 9 years old and your desire to become a veterinarian, I think you made that connection strongly enough that I got it. I felt like it might have been more direct, but you made it really subtle, but I still got the message. I think I still understood that. So I think that's a style issue and something you may want to consider whether that really is what you feel comfortable doing or if you want to be more direct with that connection. I like the way you wrapped up your experiences, that you can save lives, and that we all can have an impact on other people's lives. We can save lives in some way. I thought that was really effective. The one thing that it said you needed to do was to have better diction. And to me, it didn't come across as diction. It was more a matter of volume. There were times when your speaking became so soft that I couldn't hear the sentence you were saying, so I missed a little bit. And you have a strong voice because you use it at various times. And so I think if you can, even when you're being soft, you can still bring that volume up enough to make sure your audience gets everything that you're saying. I think you have a unique style in your speeches, and I really enjoy listening to you, and I feel like you can make stories come alive, so I think that's one of your strongest strengths. With that, I'll open up the discussion to the rest of the members. Sarah.
I love the stories. I thought they were very well done with giving us enough information that we knew what was going on, but it wasn't just it didn't feel like you were reading it from a script. So I really like the approach that you took with that. I like the pauses that were in there, but in the very beginning, the pauses were, for me, they were almost too long. But I did appreciate them being in there because it helped kind of set the tone and the pace for the story.
I was engaged enough. I was devastated when Grandma could not deliver the heifer. That was so sad. So I was thrilled that instead of staying with that, you put on your ball cap, you walk to the center. And now we know we're in a different phase of life, of story. We know that's past and we don't have to linger in the sad. So I appreciate that, but I really appreciate that you put it in there because we needed to know that version. I think if I ever have a cut lip, I want you to help me.
I love the intro because it took me right there with you. The dress, just the wrap of the blanket, giving that image to us, I think it was very strong and powerful. The pieces that I would suggest some recommendations for change. One is get rid of "I'm going to tell you a story." You're already telling a story. And you don't have to say, "I'm going to tell you 2 more stories." You can just take that step away, fast forward 20 years, and you're already into your next story. So you don't have to tell us that you're going to tell us a story. The other is pacing. At times I thought it was a little bit too slow, so work on speed of pace as well as slow. I would expect the pace of your grandmother and her, and even where you're at in that scene, the pace should be slower, even though it's an urgent issue. Then change your pacing to, 30 years later. Now you're in a busy world. You're going to school. You're this doctor. That type of thing. So get your pacing faster, so that means you're going to have to do a little bit more practice and preparation for it. Another thing that I suggest is the callback. Where you started and why it was so important is that I kept waiting for this phrase or this word, whatever it was, that you'll never forget, and no one could do it. If Leilani could do it, or was the last hope, or I was trying to find what was that key phrase that was so significant, and then I wanted you to revert back to that and say, when you were in that situation with labor and things came out okay, then you make that reference back. If it's because of your grandmother, Lenora, maybe it's, thank you, Grandma. Maybe it's just as simple as that, as just the callback of, I wouldn't have been here had it not been for Grandma, so thank you, Grandma. And then after your daughter and saving your daughter, thank you, Grandma. Or maybe it was really you're saving your wife because she doesn't like the sight of blood.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's not the patient that's the most critical person in the ER.
So you've had, Rachel.
James, I love the stories. They're amazing. I think you're a great storyteller. I love your voice. It's very, calm, strong. I agree with the volume, but your voice is powerful. And if there was something to improve, I think, is the message. I think the punchline was, I could save humans, everybody can save humans. So maybe saying that also in some kind of callback. Because when you saved your wife, it took a lot of skill, right? I mean, you're a doctor, so you knew things. With your daughter, however, it had nothing to do with your skill of knowledge. It had just to do with your heart, right? That you don't just go and traumatize a kid. Like, it had to do with the quality of your heart. So maybe stringing that together and saying, it's not just the skill, but it's where your heart is, or indeed bringing that back over.
James, you've gotten a lot of suggestions of ways to enhance the story that's very strong in storytelling, maybe a few structural changes, some changes with your volume, and some calling back to the beginning to make the story more cohesive. So I think it was a really enjoyable story, and I hope we can hear it again. That'll